Hello there my RPG lovers and welcome to another video. As the technology moves forward, the developers of open world games constantly feel the need to expand their in-game worlds as much as possible because somehow the philosophy of bigger equals better is still very much alive.
It is 4 times the size of Fallout 4. 4 times the size of Fallout 4.
Instead of refining the gameplay mechanics, expanding player choice and implementing strong consequences for your actions, most AAA open world RPGs of today decide to focus on square kilometers of nothingness that only makes padding even more obvious than before. I don't have problems with big game worlds in general. In fact, one of my favorite RPG ever, Gothic 3, had a really big world to explore. Expanding the game's length just because you have to ride from point A to point B and then come back again can be considered as lazy game design, especially if the quest you're on is a generic side quest.
There are rams out in the hills. Good eating, cooks easy, and no lords around to kill you for poaching.
I'm not trying to say that making big worlds in RPGs is bad by itself, it's actually more believable and more immersive in a way, but only if done correctly, which is really rare today. Back in the day, developers of open world RPGs had to be really creative with their smaller maps. Even though they felt more quote-unquote gamey, these smaller maps were filled with content and secrets for the player to find, so you can come back to the same place multiple times without feeling bored from backtracking. Gothic 2, for example, had multiple chapters, and within each chapter the zones would change in some way, keeping the same place you already explored interesting and refreshing. Every corner of the map was important, and there were a lot of secret passages and vertical exploration. Except the first Dark Souls game, this world design is almost non-existing in newer open world RPGs. Dark Souls is not a full-blown open-world RPG, it's a hub-world RPG, but still, the map in that game is reminiscent of older RPGs and it got much praise for it. One of the main factors that led to the problem of big blend open worlds is the trend that got popular during the last few years in gaming. A lot of sequels of different games started implementing RPG elements. Since I love everything related to RPGs, I found this idea is great, especially for some games where this kinda makes sense. Assassin's Creed Origins was the first Assassin's Creed game that went for a full RPG approach. While it remained heavily story-driven like previous games, it tried to offer a lot of side quests, few ways of building and progressing your character, and of course big open world with a lot of things to do. In my opinion, the best thing about this transition was the combat. They finally stripped down that god-awful combat from previous games, where you could kill 30 people without breaking a sweat by just pressing one button at the right time. They actually had a good idea for a decent combat system in Unity as well, but this is a topic for another video. Anyway, the big open world in Origins was really pretty to look at and traverse the terrain with your mount or by foot. And that's it actually. There were a lot of interesting places to explore for sure, but it felt like 70% of the world is just there for no reason. I wouldn't mind if it was 3 times smaller, it would make more sense. By adding more hours to gameplay, even though you spend those hours traveling from point A to point B, and bragging about the size is way more important than actually making a world map that will make the player experience more enjoyable and not artificially extended. I mentioned somewhere in the intro that bigger worlds in general are more immersive in a way. For example, when someone decides to make a big, realistic city in the game, he knows in order to do that, the city should have a lot of buildings, high population and quite a bit of square kilometers. The good example would be Novigrad from The Witcher 3. Scripted events, a lot of quests, shops and taverns, and even the map creates this feeling like holy shit, this place is huge. I mean, it got its own icon on the world map along with other huge zones. Nothing feels forced here, it all floats together really well. This is extremely hard to do and not a lot of developers manage to pull it off. Cities are one thing, but what's perhaps more interesting is the landmass of these worlds, or quote-unquote a lot of empty space. This always kinda bothers me because I feel like these people are expecting to get bombarded with content around every corner of the map or something. I feel like the people who comment stuff like this don't even like open world games. But since this genre can be so versatile, you never know what someone really thinks when he hears open world RPG. My thoughts always float towards the Elder Scrolls games, Gothic franchise and a few more games. For example, I feel like it's easier to make the world of GTA more alive than any medieval fantasy open world game. Of course, I'm not saying it's easy, Rockstar is nothing short of amazing, but the problem of empty world in these type of games are much less noticeable. But yeah, there are fuck-ups here as well, and not everyone can do it. Now, if you followed my channel in the past few months, you know that I made a lot of videos for the game called Outward. If you didn't, I have plenty of videos about that game and a review that you can check out here if you're interested. This game is the perfect example of this world feels empty problem. If you didn't know, this game is an open world RPG with survival elements. The whole design philosophy of this game wouldn't work if it had a smaller world. It's not huge by any means, but the 4 maps are decently sized, and the fact that you don't have fast travel or mounts in the game makes the world feel much bigger than it actually is. There's a decent number of locations on every map, but it goes without saying that you're gonna walk a lot in this game. Some people get the impression that the world is empty if they walk for a few minutes and nothing is happening. I respect their opinion, but they're fucking wrong. This is just an example, but people like to throw similar comments on almost all games that have big maps. Anyway, that's all I have for today. I could talk about this topic all day, but I feel like I said enough. Tell me your opinions in the comments down below. Don't forget to press the thumbs up button and subscribe for more stuff about RPGs. I recently made a Discord server as well, where we talk about RPGs and games in general. All the links are in the description. Special thanks to my patrons for supporting this channel in the long run. If you as well want to support me further, consider becoming a patron or a community member on YouTube. See ya in the next one.